Hello there folks, and welcome back to Bolts for Bucks. I hope you're enjoying the channel thus far. Today we're going to be talking about the 300 PRC versus the 300 Win Mag. So the 300 PRC was developed by Hornady, and it stands for Precision Rifle Cartridge. Alright, and the 300 Win Mag, or Winchester Mag, was developed by, of course, Winchester years and years ago, and has been a staple for longtime hunters throughout the years. You probably already know a lot about the 300 Win Mag if you've been a hunter or shooter for a long time. But the 300 PRC is really pretty new and is really just finally starting to take a good hold in the market in 2020. So more and more manufacturers, rifle manufacturers, and some ammunition manufacturers are coming on board to develop more rifles and ammunition in 300 PRC. I had a 300 Win Mag for years and years that I used on elk, deer, and some antelope, and it worked great. I actually really like the 300 Win Mag. And I got a 300 PRC this year and have been doing a lot of videos on it. So go ahead and check those out if you want. The 300 PRC is basically a commercial branded version of a 375 Ruger cartridge. So the parent case would basically be a 375. There's a ton of options in 30 caliber, okay? There's tons of cartridges that utilize a 30 caliber bullet. And there's, of course, many that are very good. And so this is by no means a you should buy this or you should buy that type video. Right here we have the 300 PRC. And right here we have a 300 Win Mag or Winchester Magnum. Now both of these are factory ammunition. The one on this one right here is a Hornady 225 grain ELDM factory cartridge, and the one over here is a 190 grain Sierra Gold Medal match ammunition. I'm holding these about at the same level, and you can see that the shoulder on the 300 PRC is set farther back than on the 300 Win Mag, and you can also see that it's a steeper angle. You can also see that the neck on the 300 PRC is slightly longer than the 300 Win Mag. However, if you look real carefully, and it's hard to tell probably on camera, you can see that the overall length of the brass is actually slightly shorter than the 300 Win Mag. Yet the overall length, of course, on the 300 PRC is much, much longer than the 300 Win Mag. The steeper shoulder, at least according to Hornady, allows for better feeding into the chamber from the magazine. Also, like I said, the brass cartridge is shorter than on the 300 Win Mag, which allows you to use longer bullets while maintaining a short enough overall cartridge length. Also on the 300 PRC, you'll see that there is no belt. Now a belt is basically this right here. It's a separate piece and it sticks out from the rest of the cartridge. Might be hard to see on camera. The 300 PRC does not have that belt, and that allows this cartridge to actually have a greater case capacity while being the same diameter. Also, one really interesting thing to note is that a 300 PRC, now of course this depends on what ammunition you're using on the load itself, but like basically a factory ammunition comparison, a 338 Lapua has actually more bullet drop than a 300 PRC beyond 1,000 yards. So you're looking at something that a regular person can purchase and afford. Yes, it might be expensive, but you can afford 300 PRC ammo and afford to shoot it and afford the rifle, whereas a 338 Lapua, not only is the ammunition bigger and heavier, which can be a pain to carry around in the field, but it also is way more expensive and usually the rifles are far more expensive also. So the 300 PRC is a great option for those who are into hunting or ELR, extreme long range, or even long range, who don't have the money to put into an extremely expensive 338 Lapua setup. The way the 300 Win Mag is designed, it doesn't allow you to use as long bullets as you can in the 300 PRC, or that the 300 PRC factory ammunitions come in, which have higher BCs and basically, like I said, have less drop and fly better through the wind with less wind deflection. So you cannot find factory ammunition or options that can compete with the 300 PRC as far as that is concerned. So getting back to the shoulder on the 300 PRC, it's 30 degrees, and not only can that help while loading around from the magazine with feed, but it can also allow better or maybe easier chamber alignment. Now, that's what Hornady says. I really haven't had problems with the 300 Win Mag. So this, like I said, is the Hornady 225 grain ELDM, and it pushes about 2,810 feet per second out of a 24-inch barrel. The other factory option from Hornady right now is the 212 grain ELDX, and that pushes at approximately 2,860 feet per second out of a 24-inch test barrel. So you're getting a ridiculous amount of velocity on an absolutely huge bullet in layman's terms. And so yeah, I can push a really long bullet with a high BC at really good speeds, which is what you want for that long range and extreme long range. One thing to note though is that when it comes to shooting at 400 yards or less, the 300 PRC does not really outperform in any way significantly the 300 Winchester Magnum. So if you're looking at strictly, I just want a hunting gun and I'm probably never going to be shooting past 400 yards, really the 300 Win Mag is not a bad option. It's going to shoot groups just as accurately as a 300 PRC at 100 yards. And it's going to recoil actually a touch less. So the recoil on a 300 PRC is more. It's not a ton more, but it is a noticeable amount more. Now, a lot of that depends on the weight of the rifle you're shooting and if it's equipped with a muzzle brake or not. So those things are depending on a lot of factors. However, like I said, at 400 yards or less, the advantages of the 300 PRC really aren't worth it, because it's probably going to cost you a little bit more in ammunition, and the 300 PRC ammunition is going to be a lot harder to find, and there's going to be a lot less options there. So if you're shooting 400 yards or less, the 300 Win Mag is a great option. Once you get past 400 yards, the amount of bullet drop and wind deflection basically compounds the further you go out, and how much better it is than a 300 Win Mag. So it's just going to get better and better and better. So less and less bullet drop the further out you go, and less wind deflection compared to a 300 Win Mag. So in that aspect, it is better for that long range or extreme long range shooting. But like I said, if you're traveling out of the country and you want to be able to find ammunition if something happens or your ammunition didn't get shipped with you, you're definitely going to want a 300 Win Mag. As we sit right now, it's much harder to find the 300 PRC ammunition. Also, one of the biggest disadvantages to the 300 Win Mag compared to 300 PRC is the head height. The head height on a 300 Win Mag is 0.72 inches. The head height on a 300 PRC is over an inch. I can't remember exactly how far, but it's over an inch. So it's quite a bit more. Ammunition manufacturers are required to manufacture them to the maximum SAMI specs. And that prevents factory ammunition from being loaded with really long, sleek, aerodynamic bullets. And because the head height is so much longer on the 300 PRC, that allows them to use those bullets in a factory ammunition. So while the Winchester 300 Win Mag may shoot at pretty close to the same muzzle velocities, the 300 PRC is shooting a much sleeker, longer bullet, higher BC bullet, heavier bullet at the same velocities or higher, which downrange converts to just better accuracy. Like I said, the 300 PRC has about 13% more free recoil energy than the 300 Win Mag. So if you're a hunter that has a lot of flinch and you're recoil sensitive, I wouldn't recommend the 300 PRC. Or if you're shooting it out of extremely light rifle or one that does not have a muzzle brake, I would not recommend the 300 PRC. If you're shooting out of a heavy rifle or a rifle with a muzzle brake or both, I would say, and you're not worried about finding the ammunition, I would say the 300 PRC is a great option. It simply outperforms the 300 Win Mag in the long range or extreme long range game, and it's just that simple. However, like I said, the 300 Win Mag is an excellent option. You can still shoot long range with it, and there is a lot more variety in ammunition choices, and it's a lot easier to find right now, and sometimes less expensive. So if you're a hunter that's looking for a rifle to just take out hunting, in most cases, I would say I would recommend the 300 Win Mag over the 300 PRC. If you're looking for a rifle to shoot long range or extreme long range on a regular basis and also maybe hunt with, I would recommend the 300 PRC. However, I would say if you get a 300 PRC, you pretty much certainly want to get a muzzle brake on it. The 300 Win Mag, I feel like, at least in my personal experience, I can manage it without a muzzle brake. So, also the barrel life on a 300 PRC versus a 300 Win Mag is a little bit worse. So I definitely don't know everything about these cartridges. And of course, I do have a limited experience with both of them. So if you have something to say, or you have a comment, or something you would like to teach me about, go ahead and leave me a comment, and I would love to hear your information and your expertise on the subject. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe below, and I look forward to hearing back from you.